Today I'm going to speak with Christine, and Christine is going to tell us about herself, who she is, what she does, how she got into the horse world, and how she got into the acting world, actually. So here's Christine.
Let me start by saying that the time on the set in Vanishing Knowledge, while I'm not a professional actress, it was probably the most real that I felt in my own life, because I felt a commitment to the result. Like I wanted people to experience the horses the way I experienced them. And so there was an actual process that I internally that I was going through, even though I'm not an actress. There was something actually quite wholesome that came out for me in the process of being asked to participate in this incredible project. I'm a very unlikely candidate to be doing any of this.
You're portraying yourself, your life, and I really didn't think it would be fair to have someone else doing that for you. And I don't think that someone else would have portrayed it the way you did yourself, and Frank and Paul and everybody else. Actors, when they go in front of the camera, they rehearse, they have their rituals, they're basically portraying someone else.
Right.
Some of the actors, they get gun shy, camera shy, whatever you want to call it. How did you handle that?
Well, I had to surrender to the moment, I will tell you, because it was drizzling here. And there was no way, anything aesthetic for me was going to come out the way that I would have wanted, if I knew that there was going to be a photo shoot. And the reason that I can say that is because I spent a lot of time in the garment world. That was my first walk as a professional out of college. And I did spend some time in New York, which is, so I'm very aware of how things look behind the camera and the final result, magazines, photo shoots, runway shows, that type of thing. So I had to surrender to that because in particular, we were in a wet season here and it was very drizzly but psychologically, I was committed to portraying the passion that I felt behind the subject matter.
So everybody did an awesome job. But here, Christine, I think we want to know a little bit more about you. So you spoke to us a little bit about the clothing industry. Could you tell us who you worked for and what you did when in your younger days?
Well, I had the opportunity to work at Ralph Lauren. So I worked in production, and then I spent some time working on the production for the runway shows, which was like an unbelievable opportunity as a young person. It was very exciting. I was in New York. I was at 557th Avenue, which is the big designer. All the big design houses are in that building, and really, had a life that was like out of a film, out of another film. Boy, I learned so much about people, production time. The timing that goes into putting together creative projects, the background noise that people don't necessarily know about when they're looking at the final product. That was a prior walk. My walk alongside this project with the horses, really, I feel like, somebody told me recently that the horses tapped me, and I will say that I do feel like this is sort of otherworldly, that I've gotten involved in this. After I left New York, I moved back to Pennsylvania, which is where I'm from, right outside Philadelphia, and joined up with my mom, who had a really thriving natural food store business. And so I was fortunate to join her, and had a little coffee house for a while. which really appealed to my creative sense. And, we had a gallery inside the coffee house, hosted live music. My grandmother and I are both artists, and so that was like sort of a natural evolution from going from the garment district back into my life as an artist.
Mhm.
And then I met my husband, and we met in the coffee house that I was running at the time, and ultimately raised my family outside Philly. But I really wanted my daughter to be exposed to horses in the manner in which that I remembered them as a child. And I would say that I was about 40 years old at this point, and I was starting to feel like there were pieces missing from my life that I wanted to experience, and there was a definitely points for me where I coped with life, which is probably not unusual for people. People find different ways to cope, whether they work out a lot, or they go out and hang out with friends, maybe get into different processes. And I definitely was struggling with appearance issues, and pretty vital eating disorder, which I thought I kept under control. It was sort of private to myself, but it had haunted me from the time that I was in probably late high school years. And
Wow.
it's a pretty big deal. It's a very lonely place for anybody who struggled with something like that. It's not something that really how to cope with, or you don't even know how to ask for help. But I can tell you that the time that I spent as a youngster with horses, the narrative of self criticism, and like where I wasn't at my best, I noticed that when I was with the horses, that narrative shut off. I wanted to get back to that, and I also wanted to share that experience with my daughter. And so I set about that lifestyle, and that's ultimately what brought me to the Nokota horses.
Being in front of the camera is a huge insecurity and huge. It's a place where everybody gets conscious. 99.9% of the people in front of the camera, all of a sudden they're like, do I look good? Am I speaking the right thing? And what made you be so calm and play yourself in the film, after going through all the things that you're telling me that you were going through, your eating disorder and so on?
Mm-hmm.
How did that work out?
Well, that's a really good question, because I was actually there's a me that I used to know that would have probably not accepted this challenge, because it would have been too much for me. And truly it would have been, because I would have been so worried about how I presented on film. I would have gotten lost, like the subject matter wouldn't have been at the forefront. In this instance, it didn't come to mind at all. And it actually was really easy for me to play my own role, because I was first of all, I was in my natural state, and no makeup. There was nobody blowing my hair out, which is obvious in parts of the film. I'm like, but you know what? I was speaking about a subject matter, and we were addressing a subject matter that has given me an opportunity to have a real connection and a feeling of belonging that I didn't have, which is probably why I suffered, so much with my eating disorder. I would say that, being around the horses, and particularly the Nokota horses, gave me an opportunity to address my insecurities in a way that that turned the whole thing inside out. And I was able to not only forget, I basically healed by I forgot about that crisis and those narratives. Everything just kind of disappeared through the process of being connected to these horses. It creates a sense of belonging that I didn't feel, or the connection that I did not feel in my day-to-day life prior to that, especially professionally, or even when I was in college. It was a real challenge, for me to just get through a day, wake up in the morning, go to class. I mean, I went to UPenn, and I can remember, having a hard time leaving my dorm or my house and going down the center of campus. There were days that I actually used to take a cab from my apartment to class, which everyone else would enjoy walking down campus, but I just didn't want to see anyone. And that Christine is gone. Like, I don't know her anymore. I remember her. Yeah, but I am in a totally different place because of the time that I spent with the Nokota horses.
Most of the actors freeze when they get in front of the camera and the director says action. I want to know what happened to you on your first take, the first time when I said action.
Well, I wasn't nervous. I can say it wasn't that kind. I was more interested in how I was going to convey the spirit of what I had experienced through the film. So that I just stepped into it. I stepped into my own role, my own self.
So none of the old insecurities came back to you? You never thought about your weight or your looks or any of that?
No, and I also trusted you. I felt safe.
Thank you.
Yeah, no, it made a huge difference, Ejaz. I didn't feel like I was in a place of judgment at all.
So, Christine, yes, could you tell us a little bit about how your insecurity as a child, should I say, started, or when did you realize that you had those insecurities?
I think, I came from a home where there were high expectations put on me I was an only child. I went to a very rigorous private all-girls school from kindergarten through 12th grade. It was not for the meek. If you didn't cut it, you could find yourself in another school. And my dad was a very demanding person. He was an engineer and very exacting in his processes. He didn't believe in sleeping late. I didn't own a pair of bedroom slippers. Said when you get up in the morning, you got dressed. There was no point of lounging around. And he was, he had a very big impact on my upbringing that way, and what was expected of me. And what was expected of me was probably, more than I was ready to handle at whatever age. I would also say that I kind of, in some point, I lost the art of play as a child, and because things got serious very quickly. I was expected to perform, what was additionally challenging was that I was a creative. And so being a creative, that did not fit into an engineer's mold at all. In fact, I can remember almost wanting to hide, my inclination towards wanting to paint or be like my grandmother. And ironically, that became not only my focus when I was at Penn, but also it became my career. And I probably ended up doing better than a lot of, my friends who were in finance and, heavy duty industry type things that would have been more appropriate, as according to my dad. So that pressure came on hard from my dad to be successful in a way that he defined success. And so to control, the eating disorder sprung out of a need to feel like I was controlling my environment. And, I mean, it would be, I mean, I could go on a 12-mile runs. I would push myself into huge extremes of eating, compulsive eating. And then, instead of necessarily being bulimic or anorexic, I would go into extremes of exercise. It was hard, there were times where I was not able to be social. It was a very, and I didn't really know enough to even ask for help at the time, but it controlled every day, every minute of every day. It was very, it was a real internal battle. I was in an environment in school that was extremely, there was not even a consideration for, you could do anything you wanted as a woman, and in the school program that I was in. But at home, I felt like there was a conflict, because part of me had to do it as I was told, and the other part of me was being educated to be incredibly commanding. So it created this internal conflict in me, because I had to be incredibly behaviorally correct in front of my dad, especially, and kind of tuck in that, that certain strength or inner wisdom that I was learning in school. And then in school, I was, being asked to, step up into a leadership role. So it created like an internal conflict for me, because I had to really step that leadership piece down with my dad. I had to keep that tucked in around him and allow
So
his light to shine.
what was the difference between the performance in your family versus in the performance in the film? Like, you were performing in both places. One place made you super conscious, and the other place you thrived. As far as I'm concerned, you did amazingly well in the film. So what was that, the difference between the two?
You took something that maybe was a negative in your life, you would look at that as, say, a negative process, or not less than ideal, but you recognize that it's because of that you become who you are. So I think I created a skill set for self-management in a way that I didn't necessarily know was happening, where I could, I could control, what, my reactivity to things. And I would say that also, I think, got highlighted in working with this particular breed of horse. I recognize that there was a reward for learning how not to be emotional, because for a feral animal, especially, to become emotional, you risk highlighting yourself and maybe being eaten or drawing attention to a herd. So I think that my process in growing up, I learned that if I didn't act out or become emotional, that I got further I got further in my path, whatever it was that I was trying to control.
We can see it and feel it and sense it, and it just is so genuine that, as far as I'm concerned, I think it's just, I don't want to say perfect, because there's no such thing in my book. But I believe that it's very believable. It's you, and I believe you, and I think the audience believes you. And I think,
Well, yeah, it felt very authentic. The whole process felt authentic for me, which is always like that. That's a very important piece in everything that I do now.
I want to the new actress or the new actor that's listening to this interview. I've been in the fashion world for a very long time, and I do know that whenever a new model or an actress walks in front of my camera, they are nervous. What do you have to say to them? What can you say that would make them ease a little bit? Because your ease in front of the camera was just incredible.
Try not to resist the sensation of otherness, or feeling like you're isolated, or that you're a spectacle. But resist that sensation and step into sensation of feeling like you're part of a whole. So it's the camera, Ejaz, maybe the person holding the boom, the lighting, the surrounding area. In our case, we had the horses. My daughter would step into that hole and resist the sensation of feeling unique and like you're the one. I think that for me, that's where I think I got the greatest support, was just recognizing that it was an entire group of us working in tandem. And I feel that way when I'm with the herd. I felt that way in the film. You know, so if you're new to a director or new to a particular, maybe it's even maybe you're even doing an interview, try to remember that the spotlight isn't necessarily on you, but step into the whole process of everything around you in that moment.
Let us know why you have chosen to work with these horses and the people that need therapy, that are autistic, that need the help or understanding themselves through the horses. How do you do that?
The horse offers a piece of connectivity that often escapes a regular person through their life. And so you can be extraordinarily successful, wealthy, top of your game, and still miss connectivity or the ability to connect with others. And I think that we, as human beings, we all crave that. And the Nokota horses in particular, because they are born into a natural herd with language, the original horse and equine language intact from ancient origins, their ability to connect as a herd and then draw in the human is exemplary. And so inside that piece is where I found the therapeutic quality. These Nokota horses have an ability to create a place of understanding and esteem in the individual.
The cultures in the past that stuck together and did something unified were the ones that succeeded the most.
You can see it inside the native cultures that have been exposed to these horses, like particularly the Lakota people. They built their society around the wisdom that they saw in the horse.
Christine is actually coming out with a book. It should be released soon. I don't have a date with me, but it'll be out soon. And I think it is going to be really, really helpful to people who want to understand the oneness and the togetherness and so on.
It's an exciting way to look at things. And hopefully this will really spark some serious curiosity in areas that I think have become somewhat stagnant. So, we're excited to see this get published. There's lots of detail. The title is Moving Hearts, and the heart piece. You'll have to wait for it to come out, but that bears repeating.
I am so grateful that I know you. I'm grateful that I've got to work with you, and I'm always in awe of you doing what you do for the humans. I mean, yes, you do a lot for the horses, but at the same time, you do a lot for the humans as well. And I really thank you from all of us. Thank you for being who you are and what you do for us. Thank you.
It's a total honor. All of this has been an honor, and it's really the horses that are propelling all of this.